I was reminding Dr. Howard of my interactions with NIOSH for about 20 years, I guess. And I think around 2014, when I was being threatened with lawsuits, the University of North Texas was being threatened with lawsuits. I was sanctioned from a couple organizations. And it had to do with me reporting research data on the efficacy of musician earplugs. And it was getting pretty intense. And we reached out to our congressman in Texas, Dr. Burgess, and we told him, what was happening, and it was pretty dramatic. So he engaged with NIOSH, and they evaluated our research and what we were saying. And I was just telling Dr. Howard back there that I still have his letter that was sent to me and our university validating that our research was in fact correct, that the testing methodology typically used for earplugs were required by EPA actually to validate the efficacy of an earplug was never intended to be used for understanding an earplug in a musical context. And the claims being made by these products was excessive, and our data was showing that these things, these claims were not validated. So I really appreciate his contribution in that way. And then also in 2010, I was awarded their National Safe and Sound Award, which is a national recognition for individuals or institutions that are working hard to prevent noise-induced hearing loss. So I really appreciate Dr. Howard being here, and hopefully we'll see the musician sector listed on the NIOSH compendium of sectors of interest. So for like 10 years or so, I've been trying to think, well, what would it be if we saw musicians there? Just like we might see a hairdresser or a dental hygienist or all these different occupational sectors. Musician has been missing largely from that list of sectors. So I think we're making great progress by labeling the music community or the music activity as an occupation, as we mentioned early this morning. So I wanted to mention and follow up a little bit again on this item 14 that Rose presented in the competencies in the last session, and Dr. Howard mentioned it as well. And of course, we're all recognizing throughout the day that music is an occupation with distinct health risks. And I want to put this up here for you to look at for a second. So this is from the advisory that PAMA and NASM, the National Association of Schools of Music, provided when they rolled out their new accreditation standard in 2011. And I remember writing this part of the standard, and I was really super excited about it because it really, I guess, captures the essence of what we want to see inside of the music school in response to these music-specific occupational health concerns. That all musicians understand and share with others the risk inherent in excessive and improper neuromusculoskeletal and vocal use while singing or playing music, including the risk of prolonged or permanent damage to musculoskeletal, neurologic, and vocal issues. And at this point when we wrote this, it wasn't inclusive of mental health and or hearing health, but the same idea it was intended to provide, I guess, guidance for the music schools. So all musicians recognize that playing and singing music is inappropriate in inappropriate ways or for extended times can cause playing-related, singing-related neuromusculoskeletal disorders. And monitor playing, this is what all musicians should do, right? Monitor playing and intensity, choice of repertoire, playing and singing technique to prevent the development of playing and singing-related disorders. And then 4, apply health knowledge in specific musical contexts such as practice, performance, production, education. Then this last 2 are really important to me. I have 2 degrees in music education, and I think it's really important that we focus on what happens when the kid gets the instrument for the first time in their musical journey. They can be traceable all the way back to even 4 or 5 years old in some cases. Certainly by the time they get to college, a lot of their performance technique and their habits and their attitudes and all that kind of stuff, their socialization and musical identity has been established before they get into college. So future music teachers, right, those who are majoring in music education in the university environment, in addition to what's presented above, should be able to teach students about these issues and manage various ensemble-based instructional activities in ways that produce a positive relationship among artistic goals, et cetera, et cetera. So the question is, this was 10 years ago, actually maybe a little bit more. And we can ask ourselves, well, what happened in the last 10 years? Do we have students who are graduating from our music schools who are able to meet these objectives? I think the answer is clearly no. Actually, in Texas, after this rolled out, the Texas Education Agency reached out to me and said, gee, you're doing this for the university environment, college level environment. Maybe we should be thinking about this for our public school music teachers. In fact, Dr. Survey and I published a paper that outlined the actual ratified mandated standards for music educators across the state of Texas, learning objectives from 5th grade all the way up through 12th grade, band, choir, orchestra, whatever, and very specific objectives that would guide the teacher to make sure the student was prepared, not only to be aware, but knowledgeable and be able to assess the situation and make changes. When that was ratified, for years, and even up till now, it's still not being acted on. So we have this as an advisory from NASM. We have a state association, and Texas Education Association, promulgating this charge. Yet schools, even in Texas, even in the one that I used to be at University of North Texas, that music education department did not take up the challenge of meeting those needs before a student graduated and went out into the public school sector. So what's going on? So I think part of our problem is that there's no core music subdiscipline. Nobody's responsible. So the problem is that in tertiary schools of music around the world, no core subdiscipline, whether music performance, music education, music theory, music history, music therapy, is structurally responsible to make sure that we meet those objectives. The objectives don't say, oh, that comes from the studio, or it comes from the ensemble, or it comes from wherever. It doesn't specify. And this is what I call a vacuum of responsibility. Faculty may care deeply about their students, but often lack the training and incentive to intervene. Administrators may defer to student services, seeing health as peripheral rather than integral to their societal role. And students are often left to figure it out for themselves. As Rose said, the advisories actually deflect the responsibility off to the student. And the students, they have to accept the injury as inevitable and internalizing blame when something goes wrong. The result is that occupational health becomes everyone's problem, but no one's expertise. Inside of the music school, it's everyone's problem, but no one's expertise. So, why don't we formalize the subdiscipline of occupational health? Think about the difference between the relevance of this topic in a musician's training compared to the relevance of an absolutely required topic for every student, music theory. I've been playing music my whole life. Yeah, I apply my theoretical knowledge, I guess, as a jazz trumpet player. But a lot of what I learned in college, I forgot. And when I go do a gig, it doesn't really have that much relevance to what I'm doing. Is that more important than occupational health? So what we need is a formal academic and professional subdiscipline within music dedicated to occupational health and well-being. One that enables schools to hire faculty with expertise in performance wellness, prevention, sustainable practice, and health advocacy. One that supports new curriculum development, core courses, minors, even graduate degrees in music health. This would also support research, building the evidence base for safer pedagogic methods, more effective health education, healthier learning environments for music schools. And it would open the door to interdisciplinary partnerships, public health, medicine, psychology, engineering, and occupational therapy. Importantly, this is not about diluting music training. It's about making training sustainable so that musicians can pursue excellence and preserve their health, and so that the next generation of educators and performers are equipped to lead change from within, not just to survive what they inherited. So I think the need is developmental, structural, and global. This isn't just a response to injury, it's developmental and structural. From the earliest stages of training, musicians need age-appropriate, stage-appropriate health education. Our music education programs must prepare teachers to protect the well-being of children and adolescents. You know, we talked a little bit in the last segment about clarinetists. There was a couple stories about clarinetists' right thumb. Well, those of us in music have studied that epidemiologically. Sure enough, our data shows right thumb pain. We also figured out, well, what's the biomechanical loading of the clarinet? So we put sensors on the back of the clarinet and we actually measured the forces for every instrument up and down the instrument. Now, I'm assuming this kind of research would not be conceptualized as even doable if it wasn't coming from within the music community, especially involving clarinetists. And what we found out is that the biomechanical loading on the right thumb is definitely related to the note that the instrumentalist is playing. So when you play the clarinet and you play open G, all your fingers are off the instrument, and all the biomechanical loading in the vector that causes the problem, which is straight down into the thumb like this, is the open G. Now, open G is the note that every kid is taught when they get the clarinet for the first time. And they practice that all the time. The methods books for music educators, when introducing clarinet to kids for the first time, start them on that worst biomechanically loaded note. So if we don't get the music educators to be aware of this and to recognize the need, you need to change how you're introducing this instrument to kids. We're starting them off in a bad way. And culturally, there's some problems with this as well. Like, for example, we studied the influence of elastic neck strap on that force of the thumb, and we found out you put a neck strap on there and the forces are diminished greatly, significantly. Guess who doesn't want neck straps on kids? Public school band directors. That's not what we do. That's not part of our tradition. So, formalizing a subdiscipline, we create the basis for standardization and international collaboration. Without this, music risks falling behind other disciplines. Let's be honest, we are falling behind. We've heard that throughout the day. Other high-performance disciplines have recognized that occupational health must be embedded into training. Their discipline-specific accreditation bodies hold them accountable for safety and sustainability. Meanwhile, music institutions remain unprepared and music professionals unqualified to meet these same expectations. The cost, injured students, faculty burnout, lost talent, and a system that continues to valorize resilience without building it. So I would say that a subdiscipline is not optional. It is fundamental. This is why establishing a formal subdiscipline for occupational health in music is not like an add-on. So my whole career, when I was at University of North Texas, for 27 years, I was a professor. And this is what I focused on. I was parked in the Department of Instrumental Studies. There wasn't a departmental home for me. So I was kind of just put into the mix of another group that gave private studio lessons. But this whole time, It just seemed like this specialization not only could develop significantly inside of this context, it had a huge impact on a lot of the students that were there who are majoring in performance in music education. You've heard from many of the students today who've had that kind of experience. Ari Yoshimura, Michael Thrasher, James Ford, Elaine Whitmere, Megan Taylor, right? They're all high-level musicians who had this added extra opportunity to become somewhat specialized in this area, to learn how to do research and to actually contribute to this conversation. So I know it's doable, and it could be a specialization that could be appropriate for a number of other areas. Like a lot of times a music school might not be able to afford a full-time oboe teacher because there's not enough oboe students to keep them employed full-time. So they might look for an oboe teacher who also has a specialization in music theory, right? So somebody who's getting a degree in oboe might take classes in another area to be more qualified to fit that role. Now, wouldn't it be something if we were pushing out students in performance or music education or conducting or whatever that also had this area of expertise? And that could be implanted into a school and have some ripple effects across the campus. And Michael Thrasher this morning brought up a couple really poignant points for me when he said about, well, what about the costs? People think it's expensive. Well, just imagine how many application, or let's see, how many call for applications go out every year from all the music schools around the world for new faculty. Piano, cello, violin, flute, jazz, whatever. Constantly looking for new applicants. What if there was one line added to that application or the call for applicants that said, we're looking for somebody to teach trombone. And we're interested in finding people who teach trombone who have this area of knowledge or this area of interest, or even an open mind to learn about it. That doesn't cost the school anything. It's a free opportunity to embed this kind of expertise. But the problem is we don't have university music-based programs that are training people in this area. The program at the University of North Texas does not exist anymore. 27 years of developing this DMA, special field, PhD in music, went away. I hearken back to Dr. Nabil's message this morning when he was talking about codes of ethics. And because we don't have any, we're subjected to self-imposed codes. As I've worked under many deans throughout my career, I can see the influence of those self-imposed codes on decision-making in regards to these issues. So at the University of North Texas, when I first started there, the deans were super excited. They understood. They had personal experiences. They believed in it. And then this kind of attitude changed with different deans. And it got to a point where there was a lack of interest, lack of belief, lack of support. So if we don't have policy, we don't have codes of ethics that require this kind of attention built into our structures, it's going to be, highly variable. So I don't know how to proceed with convincing the music discipline, perhaps NASM as a accrediting body, to actually start thinking about how do we actually embed this specialization, recognize this new area that we consider essential and mandatory for every school to have. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Thank you.